This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Life is hard sometimes, and there are many pathways in navigating the inevitable ups and downs of life. In riding these waves, I look to my yoga practice and also therapy. We all go through tough times like big life changes, periods of instability, conflict, or loss. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist entirely online, which is very convenient, flexible, and suited to fit your schedule. Take the questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist. And if it's not the right match for you, no worries. You can change your therapist for no additional charge. Sometimes getting started in therapy is the hardest part. To make it a little bit easier, go to the link provided in the show notes or go to visit betterhelp.com/yoga and podcast today to get 10% off your first month. Hey friends, I thought I'd bring back this older episode. It's an oldie but a goodie, Yoga and Symbolism, featuring Ray Cardenas. Ray is the owner of Practice Yoga Austin, and he is a wealth of knowledge. He talks all about mythology in terms of yoga and the symbolism within mythology. I think you're really going to love this episode.
Vibing out in the sun, we welcome everyone. Gave 101, the goal is having fun. I'm happy, like I told ya. I'm stretching out, doing yoga, not stopping till it's over. Don't want the day to be done. I'm happy, like I told ya. I'm stretching out, doing yoga, not stopping till it's over. Don't want the day to be done.
Welcome, friends, to Yoga and Podcast. This show highlights the science and brings the magic of yoga and mind-body practices down to earth for the everyday person to help you live your best life. I'm your host, Ashley Weber, a yoga and Pilates teacher and forever student who is oh so curious about all things yoga and. I'm super excited to share with you this upcoming conversation. Now, let's sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode, y'all. Joining us on today's episode is owner of Practice Yoga Austin, Ray Cardenas. How are you today, Ray?
I'm doing great. Yeah, it's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Been hanging out outside, so feeling good.
Nice. Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit more? Tell me who you are, what you're about.
Sure. One of the owners and founders at Practice Yoga Austin. I am a father of two. What else about me? I've been in the yoga game about 10 years, and I found yoga through a stressful job as a professional poker player, and I needed to unwind from the stress of that, and so that's what led me to yoga. And yeah, it's been a fun journey.
I read that you were a professional poker player. What an interesting turn of events to lead you to being a owner of a yoga studio and having yoga in your life for 10 years. What does yoga look like in your own life?
Right now it's mainly a lot of leading teacher training because of COVID. So we had to shift the business model a bit because we weren't able to have public classes, and so we put our teacher trainings online and marketed them globally, and probably did more than we normally would if the business was functioning how it usually does. But it's been great because in terms of my own personal practice, I've been more into the meditative, contemplative aspects of yoga. The physical practice is still a part of my life, but it isn't like I don't need to do like an hour yoga class every day. My body does it. I don't get that. I used to. And I view that as like at least for me, it was like a rite of passage. I got a lot out of practicing for a long time, consistently, daily. And then, the practice is fluid and it's more than just this asana. And so, yeah, it's more in the meditative, contemplative realm these days.
I love it. And today's episode's all about symbolism and yoga and even some mythology. I think we might talk about what does symbolism in the context of yoga look like exactly?
Well, one way to look at it is just like there's symbolism embedded in the names of the poses, and there's like qualities, in the physical postures that call forth these archetypes, so to speak. And so it's embedded in the poses. Yoga was initially utilized as a means of engaging with the spiritual realm. When we go back to ancient India, we look at like, okay, how did yoga, like what is that in the context of ancient India? And it was the means by which people were able to gain a better understanding of the spiritual realm, which was a higher priority back then, and it's seen in the practices that they did where it was more about renunciation, and so there was a bigger emphasis placed on the non-physical world than there is today. And nowadays symbols serve as like a gateway to the non-physical world, because they had their images or stories that have meaning embedded in them, and the meaning reveals itself to varying degrees depending on the depth of understanding of the person experiencing the symbol. But it isn't arbitrary, it isn't personal. There is a set of meaning embedded in a symbol that will reveal itself, in different ways to different people, but it's a consistent thing. It's objective. It isn't subjective.
So we'll get into more in detail about symbolism, but I'm just curious what specifically, or if there's anything in particular inspired you to look deeper into symbolism.
One thing that inspired me to look into symbolism and just meaning in general was the fact that I got super burnt out by kind of arbitrarily constructing my own value system, because my understanding of yoga at a certain point in my life was like, it's all one, it's all neutral, you get to kind of make up your own rules. And so I was doing that for a while, and it was exciting and liberating for a while, but I didn't have like a comprehensive understanding of like my own being and the nature of reality, and not that I do now or anything, but I have a different perspective on it. And basically the things that I was doing, which was just kind of listening to my instincts, my will was in my instincts. So I would act based on whatever impulse came my way, because I would say, well, I'm experiencing this impulse, I'm going to honor that and listen to my body, so to speak, as kind of like a bit of a cliche in yoga. And so basically what that ended up doing was creating unconscious appetites that then zapped my energy. And I was like, hey, what's going on here? And I just, at a certain point, I was like, you know what, like, this is not right. And my whole life I rebelled against systems of control or culture or standards that were being forced upon me. In my opinion, I was like, I'm going to make my own rules. And then I just realized at a certain point, like, hey, wait a second, maybe the collective knowledge and wisdom of humanity across thousands of years is there might be something to it that might be worth looking into. And so that's when I started trying to, instead of rejecting things that I didn't understand, I wanted to look more deeply into them and say, like, what's valuable here?
I mean, that's amazing. That's I feel like I know hardly anything about symbolism now, and I'm so excited to learn more. Let's talk about how the chakra system plays into symbolism.
Yeah. My relationship to the chakras is it's funny because when I first was exposed to them, I was like, oh, this is hokey, this is kind of new age. It seems to be just like a made up thing. And the reality of it is that, like, the chakra meditation is like one of the oldest practices of yoga. And granted, it looked different back in the day. Like, the chakras were deities themselves. Like, you would chant a mantra and implant a deity in a certain part of your body to cultivate the qualities associated with that deity within yourself. And as as consciousness evolves, people feel less connected to the meaning of, let's say, like a Hindu deity, and there's something more intrinsic now about like the meaning of a color. And it might not be conscious, but like when you see a color, it acts upon you in an instinctual way, and there's meaning embedded in color. And if you take like a marketing class or something like that, an advertising class, they'll give you a template with like the colors and every quality that's associated with them. So there's inherent meaning in the colors. And to me, like, I didn't want to get into the chakras, but the person who was leading the chakra module in our teacher training had to stop, and so we didn't have anyone to do it. And so I was like, well, this was right around the time when I was kind of transitioning from my instinctual consciousness to a more like, hey, I'm gonna learn more about these different methods. And so I was like, I'll take it on. And it was I had to figure out a way to make them genuinely meaningful to me. And then I stumbled upon Goethean color theory, and it relates to like the phenomenology of color, the meaning directly embedded in color, and how that can be found in nature, and it's specifically in relationship to the sun. And like when the sun comes up in the morning, it looks red at the very beginning, right? And then as it goes higher and higher, it transitions into yellow. And so like there's a lot of cool like reasons why that is, and there's meaning associated with it, and we talk about it in teacher training. But I guess one thing I can say about it is when you look at the sun through the darkness of Earth's atmosphere, it looks red, right? And so that means that light emitting from the sun seen through darkness looks red. But then when you look up at the sky, so like the question, why is the sky blue?
Yeah.
So once the sun has been shining on the earth for a while, and the light rays are bouncing through the atmosphere, so there's a bunch of light, we know that like up in outer space, it's pitch black, right? Yeah. So it's dark, it's darkness in outer space. So darkness seen through light looks blue. Light seen through darkness looks red. And so like the lower chakras are
Oh.
gradients of red, and the higher chakras are gradients of blue. And then the highest chakra is purple, which is the blue and the red mixed together. And that's the oneness, the Sahasrara chakra at the top, you know? And so there's all just, and like blue has a quality that like draws you towards it. Like you're looking out at the ocean and you're like, oh, this is so majestic. And I'm inspired, I'm called to, you know, this deeper state of being when I see that. And red has a quality that like confronts you and you're like, whoa, maybe I should like, you know, step back and stop, like a stop sign or a red light or something like that, you know? So there's different, and so that then that's associated with where you come into a physical body and you're confronted by reality of being embodied. And that's the gradients of red of the lower chakras are associated with like the instinctual ego. And so, yeah, there's just, it's a great way to know yourself more fully is the short answer to that. Yeah.
I love what you're talking about, the color and seeing the lightness through dark and seeing the darkness through light and how that's associated with the chakras. I never knew any of that. I was like, why is the sky blue? You just answered it. You just answered why is the sky blue? It's awesome. Wow. So let's get into some of the mythology side if you want to share. Ganesh, Kali, all that. Would you like to elaborate more on the mythology and the symbolism?
Yeah, Ganesh is a good one to talk about because he's so ubiquitous, so recognizable, and you know, big in the yoga world. And the thing too about symbols is like we're in a rational age where it's helpful for us to understand things on a rational level, but it's also helpful, more useful, I would say, to let a symbol hit you on a non-rational level. And that's simply by like, so if, like just beholding the symbol, let's say it's like a picture of Ganesh, and you just let it work upon you in a way that isn't like communicating explicit meaning. Granted, like having a general idea of what like the general understanding of the meaning of Ganesh is good, and that can take you down a deeper path, but really an authentic way to relate to a symbol is to let it hit you on like the emotional level and just the instinctual level. And so we can see like in Ganesh, he's got, just looking at the symbol without really knowing the story behind him, you can see like, okay, this is a big entity. It's got a big belly and he's got an elephant head. And so he's the symbol of the ordering principle, the universal order. And so what it tells you is like, okay, the universe is vast, right? There's a lot going on here. And so that's one thing about Ganesh. The other aspect of like, if you look at just Ganesh or a lot of these other deities, even like Shiva and Durga, you look at their eyes and you see this kind of like blank stare. It's like the eyes half open, half closed. It's like, you know, when they say soften your gaze in yoga, you're kind of cultivating this look with your eyes, but it's the idea that they're looking out onto like into the physical world, but they're also looking in at the same time into a spiritual reality. So as symbols, they exist as the bridge between the physical reality and the non-physical, and they're forms that enable us to glimpse formless truth. And so Ganesh has been said, he's like he's the formless one who took a form for the benefit of his devotees so that they could gain a greater understanding. And there's an interesting aspect of Ganesh where like one of his tusks is full and long and the other one's broken. And there's a relationship to that between like the long beam of the cross and the short beam of the cross. They have a similar meaning embedded in Ganesh's tusks. And his trunk is an instrument of of yoga. Like an elephant's trunk is the means by which, you know, they get things done. And so an elephant's trunk can pick up a grain of rice, or it can knock over a tree. And so it can do really big things or really small things. So it kind of shows the connection between, again, like the ever-present eternal reality and the temporary physical reality. And all the symbols abide in this context of as above, so below. So it basically says like where we're at here is a microcosm of the eternal non-physical reality, and you can glimpse those truths through understanding the meaning that is, you know, concealed behind natural phenomena. Yeah. And I used to think that, like, you know, you hear the trope that nature's an illusion, right? Or there's Maya, the illusory aspect of nature. And so some people hear that and they're like, okay, well, I'm not gonna, if it's an illusion, then whatever, I'm just gonna like reject it, not look too deeply into it. But what it really means is, like, there's an illusory aspect of nature, but there's a deeper meaning behind the illusion that you can discover. And so it doesn't mean that you should say, oh, nature's an illusion, are going to reject it. That's kind of what the ancient Indian did. They're like, this is a hindrance to self-realization, is what they thought was nature. And then as time progressed and like modes of teaching like Tantra came about, it was like, no, nature and the physical body, that's the means for realization and transcendence. So you should try to know the deeper aspects of yourself as an embodied being and the natural world around you. And that's how you can connect with the higher levels, not by rejecting it and like closing your eyes and only, you know, focusing on the inner reality.
So when you talk about nature and the symbolism there, like and maybe a really basic example would be like an animal totem. Like you walk outside and suddenly you see a fox and you're in the suburbs, and there you want to look up that animal. What does that animal maybe symbolize? Would that be an example of looking into nature for that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Animals, like, yeah, they represent qualities that are within us. Like if you think about I guess how you can know like get to know the unknown, it has to be related to the known. And so there's something in us that enables us to relate to the energy of a fox, right? Or of an elephant, you know. So there's and it's intuitive. Symbolism really is intuitive, but our rational consciousness that's come about from our, you know, technological prowess has kind of dulled our intuition. So we all have the ability to intuit meaning from symbols, but it's just a matter of taking the time to value that and to cultivate that faculty. It's called suprasensory perception. So yeah, and so with Ganesh, I will say one last thing about him, because in his origin story, like, he gets created by Parvati, who's the divine feminine, who's, you know, in consort with Shiva, who's the divine masculine, and Shiva is away from Parvati for, you know, there's a bunch of different stories as to why it is, and she doesn't know when he's coming back. So basically the union of masculine and feminine has been separated, and as a result, Parvati creates a son out of the skin of her foot. In some versions of the story, she rolls up and makes it into a human boy, and he serves as the gatekeeper for her bedroom. And then Shiva comes back and decapitates the boy, and Parvati and soon realizes, like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Parvati basically lets them know, like, hey, you messed up. You need to get this boy a new head immediately. You have to decapitate the first animal that you see and put its head on our son. And so they see an elephant, cuts the elephant's head off, puts it on the boy's head. And then as a result of that whole circumstance, that's the really abbreviated version of the story, but the masculine and feminine come back together around this new child. And Shiva, in the story, he gives the child the gunas. I don't know if you know what the gunas are, the forces of nature. It's just, just the aspects of natural reality. And so that's why the meaning of that aspect of the story is Ganesh is now, he's the ruler of the gunas. He's the symbol of the orienting principle of the universe, the way that the natural elements relate to each other.
I mean, I've always seen the symbol, or I've seen it in the yoga world, and I didn't know the backstory. I didn't know that it was a decapitated sun and then an elephant head on top. Wow.
And then decapitation in mythology has a meaning too. It's sort of like you think things are one way, and then you get initiated into a new school of like a new understanding. And in a sense, that's a decapitation, and you're put a new head on. It's like a new understanding. So
metaphor.
It's a metaphor for a rite of passage.
Oh my gosh. Do you want to talk about Kali? Because I feel like she's all over the place in the yoga world, and it might be mysterious to some.
Totally. Yeah. So Kali is an expression of Durga, and Durga is the one who rides the tiger and has the 10. Sometimes it's 10 arms, sometimes it's 8 arms, and she kind of has the blank expression on her face. And there's one of the popular images of her and stories around her is where she's like killing this water buffalo demon, and she's got this blank expression on her face, like it's not a big deal, it's this intense circumstance, but she's very calm. And what that tells us is that she's the symbol for what's called Adi Shakti, or is like the divine feminine, as in like the most zoomed out state. And the feminine is that which can bring forth all forms. And so Durga is like the blank slate potential, and Kali is like one expression of the feminine, and she comes forth in a battle with a demon who got granted a boon, a wish from Brahma. And his wish was, like this demon, and a demon in Hindu mythology is just someone who's selfish, like who has, they can be helpful, they can help others, but a demon ultimately has self-centered motives. And so this guy's motive, I don't know, he wanted to serve himself, wanted to be the most powerful, and he did a bunch of yoga or a bunch of tapas to generate power, and was thus granted a wish by the universe. And his wish was that whenever he shed a drop of blood, that 1,000 more of himself would emerge, and so that way he could never be killed or stopped. And so he's wreaking havoc on the universal order, as demons do, for self-centered purposes. And they're like, okay, who can beat this guy? Durga, we need you. So Durga's fighting this guy, and she, she's cutting him up, beating him, because she's also a god, very powerful goddess. But he keeps on coming back, and so she's getting frustrated. She's turning into all these different forms to try to stop him. And then finally the end point form that arises is Kali, and she how she's got that long tongue, and she's drinking the blood on the battlefield, and she has all those heads that are the same head. That's the demon that she's keeps killing. And so the way that she ends up beating this guy is that she's, before the drops of blood can hit the ground and turn into demon, she's drinking all the blood with that long tongue. And so she's like the ultimate destroyer feminine principle that resets the order when the order has become corrupted. So like this demon corrupted the universal order, and she's resetting it. But what happens is she gets drunk off the blood, and she's doing this dance, and it's gonna destroy the whole universe. And Shiva's trying to meditate at his mountaintop palace, and he's shaken by the intensity of the dance. So he's like, oh no, I better go see what's going on. And so he goes, and she sees her doing this dance of destruction, and he has the impulse, because that's his beloved, that's the divine feminine, you know, they're in relationship. And so he lays down at her feet and lets her dance on him. And then so she starts to realize in this drunken, ecstatic dance of destruction that she's killing her husband, and she stops. And she reverts back to the
wow,
other
I
form.
never knew all that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was him. Oh my gosh.
And so that's just like it's a story about the kind of, you know, back and forth of the universe, and just the masculine, how it's always moving like a kind of like a sinusoid, you know, like a pulsation.
Yeah.
And there's, you know, it's going one way, and then it has to get destroyed, go the other way, and then that has to get reoriented and back up and down. So it's just the back and forth of the masculine and feminine is what that story is about.
Wow. That is wild. What would be, so there's so, we're just touching like the tip of the iceberg on symbolism and yoga. I mean, these are just two mythological beings that you talked about, and there's a whole world more, and then there's chakras, and then there's so many ways to explore symbolism. What advice would you give to someone who is like brand new to this idea of symbolism in yoga? Where should they begin in learning more?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and I would say that the first thing to do is like start to just cultivate your intuitive faculty and look at some of this stuff. And there's a lot of resources online, of course, but it's really about like you kind of have to buy in to the fact that, hey, this is valuable. There has to be some sort of impulse, some reason. So maybe the idea too is that if you can engage deeply with the meaning of a symbol, then you can shift your own state. That symbol can act upon you in a it's a non-rational, it can be rational, but in a more than rational way that actually shifts your whole being. So like, for example, like I just made a post on the Practice Yoga IG about the Fool archetype, because it's April Fool's Day. And like, I've been noticing in myself like that lately I've been feeling very opinionated and very like I don't know, judgy and of other people's opinions, and so but today being April Fool's, I bring the Fool archetype is like up in my field of consciousness, and I can, because I have a relationship to the meaning of that archetype, I can be like, I don't need to be so opinionated and judgmental and bogged down by my identification with what's right and what's wrong. I can channel this Fool archetype as a reminder of like, hey, I don't really know what's going on. No one really knows what's going on. It's okay to kind of just stumble about and be, you know, at peace with life and the world. So it's really about being able to shift your state, just like a yoga pose can serve to shift your state. You can relate to a symbol to enable a state shift. And so I would say just, you know, look at some typological symbols, or read about some mythological symbolism, read some myths with just eyes that want to see, and like with an open mind, open heart. There's a book called Eye of the Heart by Cynthia Bourgeault. It's a new book, and the beginning of it's really relatable. She offers up a story about her own life and relates it to the Jonah story, Jonah and the whale, and how, like, you know, sometimes when you're trying to do what you want to do, and it doesn't work out, that's because there's a bigger purpose for you. And so just like relating like a story in your own life where you've like let's say you feel guilty about something, or you're hard on yourself, you're bummed that something didn't work out. If you channel that meaning behind the Jonah myth, then you can see your own circumstance through a new light, and it frees you up from the burden of your own instinctual understanding, and it gives you energy to like move forward in a new way. And so yeah, just I would say when you meditate also, you like meditating is you're like dulling the senses and noticing the forces that are acting upon you inside. And the more that you do that, those forces will kind of start to crystallize into images. And that's a way to relate to symbols. So you'd be like, okay, this quality, oh yeah, that kind of reminds me of like, I don't know, when Kali was licking up the like this anger that I feel about this thing. Okay, I see. And maybe that was necessary, but maybe I need to stop because now it's starting to get destructive beyond what it should be, So there's that. And then there's a YouTube channel. There's a lot of the resources that I use. If you're comfortable with like Christian symbolism, there's a YouTube channel called The Symbolic World, and that was really helpful for me too, because once I started to embrace symbolism as a whole, I also kind of realized that like just for me, I was like, I need to try to apply this to Christianity, because I resented it so much, because as a child, like Western civilization, I felt that it was just wrong and oppressive, and so I decided to take a deeper look into that symbolism as well. And it was really helpful for me to understand it on a deeper level and relate it to yoga, because it all relate. Yoga is, how can I unite things within myself as opposed to being against and being separate? Like what's good here? What's valuable here? Stripping away that which isn't valuable. So yeah, The Symbolic World is a good YouTube channel. There's an IG account called Hinduism and Science that kind of explains some of these narratives and symbols, and it's a little bit propagandistic, the account is, because I think it's like a Indian right-wing nationalist, but so it goes deep on like the meaning of Hindu, and you can tell they're of Hinduism, and you can tell that they're like super into it. But I love some of the stuff that they're writing on there about the myths. And then there's also an Instagram account, if you want to get real kind of esoteric with it. There's an Instagram account called Gnostic Rosicrucian, and that's a good one too to check out for symbolism.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I have a symbolism story that happened to me recently. I was, and I also think yoga just makes you more aware, and so you can pick up on things that are right in front of you. But I had a job. This has been in the pandemic. I've had a lot of jobs where I'm just hustling, delivery driving, dog walking. I mean, every job, and I felt like I needed to let this one job go, but I wasn't sure if I was just like making it up. All day long, I saw eagles all day long. Boring, and that I just trusted that in my gut. I was thinking I needed to move on, and I kept seeing all these eagles. Even eagle pose came up in yoga a bunch, and what does eagles symbolize to me? Well, freedom, soaring, letting go, flying away, right? And so that really, it's not rational, necessarily, but I just trusted that, oh, this is weird. I'm seeing all these eagles all of a sudden. What is it trying to tell me? And so I let it go, and it was a great decision. But
I'm glad you brought that up about attention, and because yoga does cultivate your capacity for attention, and then you become more aware of those synchronicities like that, like you see in the eagles and the eagle imagery, and then that acts upon you, and that's the imaginal realm guiding you. Like you're being guided, and maybe like an intuition's being reinforced. So I thought, yeah, that's cool. I'm glad that you noticed that.
Yeah. Before yoga, I would have just been like, oh, Ashley, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So
Totally.
yeah, just trusting that intuition. So would you like to do the rapid fire round?
Yes, I would love that.
Okay, these are some hard hitting questions, so I hope
All
you're
right.
ready.
I think I'm ready.
So how it works, I'm sure you can gather that I'll ask you a question. The first answer that comes to mind, you'll rapidly answer to
Okay.
the fired question. So favorite color,
Green.
favorite dessert,
Cheesecake.
oh, favorite song or genre of music.
Favorite song. Oh my gosh. I really like this song called Narcos by Anuel.
Okay, cool. One of your top 5 books.
Yeah, my favorite book is called Meditations on the Tarot.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a great book. Highly recommend it.
cool. Favorite restaurant in Austin.
Favorite restaurant in Austin is I've been loving Better Half. You ever been over there?
I don't know Better Half, and I feel like I know all the restaurants in Austin.
It's the guys that own Brew and Brew, and it's over off East Fifth, or excuse me, West Fifth, and
West.
yeah, it's at like Pressler and West Fifth. It's really good. They got such a good cheeseburger. It's so good.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. Oh,
They got veggie burgers too.
They have the mural. They have the mural on the side, or is no? They don't have the mural.
No, I don't think that's them. But they have a huge, majestic tree in the back patio that just looks amazing. And
Cool.
mhm,
Cool.
yeah, check it out. Better Half.
Better Half.
Oh, that you're thinking of the Butter Half mural. You're
yeah,
my Butter
it's
Half.
on East 7th.
Yes,
Okay.
and I kind of jokingly call Better Half Butter Half.
Better
So
Half. Yeah, I'm sure they love it. Favorite yoga pose.
I honestly, my favorite one that I've been liking right now is where it's like a variation of windshield wiper, where you just drop your knees to one direction and then activate your legs and do a little like energetic line from your front hip point to your knee, and it like stretches your hip flexor and your quad. It just feels so good.
Nice.
So a little windshield wiper.
Cool. I'm unexpected. I guess that. I do like that pose though. Favorite style of yoga.
Yeah, I like the alignment based yoga. That's that's the yoga that I teach in the teacher training, and it's sort of like where you apply consistent principles to each shape. It doesn't say like each shape has to be like this, look like this. It's just a consistent set of actions that become a ritual in each pose, and to me that does it for me. So alignment based yoga.
Cool. Well, thank you for playing the game. I love rapid fire because you never know what people are going to say. Cheesecake. What a random.
Yeah, and you got to have like the graham cracker crust and maybe the pineapple preserves on there.
Oh, pineapple
cheesecake. Yeah,
exotic cheesecake.
super good. Yeah, tropical.
Cool. Yeah, well, thank you so much for being on the show. This was so awesome to have you on and connect. Where can people find you?
People can find me. I do most of the Practice Yoga Austin Instagram, and also I'm on IG. Personal account is Raise Awareness. That's REYS_awareness. And yeah, that's where people can find me. You can also find me in the Practice Yoga Zoom room on Tuesday nights at 7:30, and in studio in person Wednesdays at noon. So I'd love to have you in class.
Great. And all of Ray's and Practice Yoga Austin's info's in the show notes, so you're just one click away from connecting with Ray. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope to have you back soon.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you receive value from the show, please write us a 5-star review, and or you can text this episode to just one friend who you know will love yoga and podcast. We thank you so much in advance for the huge favor. Word of mouth helps support the show in reaching a greater audience, and we could not grow without you. If you want to connect with us, our email is yogaandpodcast@gmail.com. The and is spelled out YOGAAND podcast@gmail. Please follow us on Instagram at Yoga and Podcast. We are now on TikTok. The handle is also Yoga and Podcast. When you follow us, we will follow you right back on both platforms. Music is by Mama Duke. Graphics, guest booking, and media by me, your host, Ashley Weber. I am so grateful for you. Thank you for listening.